Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. Gunmen fatally shot two brothers early this morning in Sandy Bay, Clarendon. The deceased are 19-year-old Richard Richie Blake and 16-year-old Ricardo Blake, otherwise called Diggs or Black Man. Both of them are from Rasta Corner, Sandy Bay, Clarendon. Another 13-year-old student was also injured during the attack. Both teenagers were reportedly at home with their mother when the gunmen kicked open the front door and opened fire. The teenagers received gunshot wounds to the head and all over their bodies. The Clarendon police are investigating. And the police in Clarendon are also investigating a murder after finding human body parts buried in a deep hole in Wanstead. The deceased has been identified as 39-year-old O'Neill Blackstock. Police say the man was reported missing 2 weeks ago. Residents who continued to search for the missing man followed a blood trail and made the discovery on Wednesday. The man's head was found in a bucket. His other body parts were found in bags of chicken feed in a deep hole. Police sought the help of the fire department, and after several hours, they retrieved and removed the body parts. A 19-year-old man involved in an attempted robbery in Oteria, St. Anne recently is now in hospital under police surveillance. The man, who was not identified, is nursing gunshot wounds received on Monday while attempting to rob a resident in Shaw Park area. It's reported that two men held up the resident at gunpoint, but the victim, who is a licensed firearm holder, retaliated and shot the 19-year-old. The gunman fell to the ground while his accomplice escaped, leaving the weapon behind. Police say both men are from the parish. A former education minister is proposing a mandatory period of service in the military for unattached youths in Jamaica. Ronald Thwaites made the suggestion in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. He raised the issue during the debate on the bill to establish the National Police Service Corps.
I am positing to my colleagues in the House that we must consider this financial year, this year of grace, introducing a compulsory period of military service in this country for those who are not engaged in tertiary education or who are not employed, but who leave school and become feckless individuals because of the absence of those opportunities. We need to see how that can be done. Other countries do. I believe our Prime Minister recently visited Israel, and they have a system of that because they are fearful of war and unrest.
The mayor of Portmore, Leon Thomas, has revived calls for a hospital to be built in Portmore St. Catherine as resource shortages continue at the Spanish Town Hospital. The mayor made the call following a tour of the Spanish Town Hospital on Tuesday, where the challenges were discussed.
Over 12,000 housing units to come on stream, and if you multiply that by 4, then you can see how many persons that we're talking about coming into the parish. And that is only one of the major developments, but we have a lot of other development that taking place. If we have an hospital in Portmore, then that will help to ease some of the problems that you have here.
A police constable is among 3 persons being treated at hospital following yesterday's motor vehicle collision along the Boscobel Main Road in St. Mary. Reports are that about 11:30, the police who were on patrol were about to pull over a car heading towards Oterias when it slammed into their vehicle. The driver of the car recounts what happened.
I come from Portmore and by the time I brought the corner, police car up on the right, I drive out. I couldn't do nothing more. I shot on my brake and it come like film car and move, so the car just hit him and spilled.
The constable, who was not identified, suffered a broken arm. The other 2 persons got minor injuries.
Well, like the police might try to cook up something because they might laugh. So, I have to go fight it. Because I can't get wrong here, so we're well right.
The Orocabessa police have refused to comment on the matter. Business and consumer confidence is at an all-time high. Finance Minister AUDLEY made this assertion while speaking at a ceremony for young entrepreneurs on Wednesday. Mr. Shaw maintained that interest rates needed to be lowered in order to improve the economic environment.
We have to get out of this thinking, this high interest rate thinking, where even right now among commercial banks, the average interest rates in commercial banks have fallen over the past year from 17% to 16%, still too high. Commercial bank rates need to get irretrievably into single digits, like the rest of the world.
Mr. Shaw adds that lower oil prices have resulted in a decline in inflation.
So if inflation is now at 4%, which is what I think the fiscal year will have come out at, although to the end of December we had achieved an inflation rate of about 2 or just over 2%, which was phenomenal. But the average for the entire fiscal year is probably closer to 4%. But then if we have an inflation rate of 4%, why are we insisting on interest rates averaging 16%? No, doesn't make sense.
The finance minister says commercial banks are lending more money at cheaper rates to the productive sector. The Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association of Jamaica is again lamenting another breakdown in the ASICUDA system at Jamaica Customs. The association says the system is frustrating members as it seeks to access goods before the long holiday weekend. As a result, the Customs Association says their operations are being crippled and there will be a pileup of shipments for clients. They insist that even if the system is restored, there will still be short-term problems.
I know Customs had done an extension for a 1-hour workday. They have actually asked for the assistance of the buy-in from the other stakeholders, the other port facilities, and the warehouse keepers across the island. Most of those persons have accommodated with a late opening. However, there are still going to be some shipments that we will not be able to get out. Now, those customers will face storage and demurrage charges.
Since the automated system for customs data ASICUDA has been implemented, business people have been complaining about it. The Realtors Association of Jamaica is still concerned about the margin of increase for commercial property owners. Even though the overall tax rates have been reduced, some commercial property owners will still pay about 600% more for property taxes.
The properties over 20 million in value, they are going to experience the heaviest effect, even with the rollback, because some will still see an increase of over 600%. Now that I think is still cause for concern.
Mr. WINT says the maintenance fee in lease agreements may also increase.
So when you have something like the property tax, which is a line item in that budget, it is going to have a knock-on effect on the maintenance rates to the tenants. So again, we might see some adjustments there.
And the Jamaica Manufacturers Association, JMA, is calling for incentives for tax collectors who make the extra effort to improve compliance.
One of the recommendations coming out of the JMA for all tax types is that we incentivize tax collectors by giving them bonuses based on new taxes brought in from new taxpayers. We think that is important. There are just too few of us that are paying tax for too many.
He pointed to an increase in the amount collected for corporate income tax after the employment tax credit was introduced. The JMA president says if more persons pay their taxes, the rates could be reduced. Meanwhile, the Jamaica Agriculture Society, JAS, is calling on the government to use property taxes more efficiently. This comes on the heels of property tax adjustments announced on Tuesday by Finance Minister AUDLEY.
Government to take a game-changing approach to spend the property tax that they are now collecting in a more effective way. Let's get our roads improved. Let's get irrigation to our farmers. Let's get the garbage collected in the rural areas, and let's get the lighting going. And then people will be happy to pay taxes.
In the meantime, the JAS says it appreciates the reduction in property tax rates, but was hoping that the margin of increase for agricultural properties would be less. Under the newly revised property tax rates, agricultural properties will see a 40% markup in taxes. That's, however, less than the 93% markup which was announced during the budget debate. The government has ratified the Paris Agreement 1 year after it was signed in April 2016. The Paris Agreement is the global framework for combating climate change and seeks to reduce carbon footprints. Minister without portfolio with responsibility for climate change, Daryl Vaz, made the announcement at a recent climate change symposium.
Climate change affects us all in a very big way. More intense storms and hurricanes result in more expenditure in preparing for these disasters, in cleaning up and doing rehabilitation work in the aftermath. Climate change does not discriminate between rich or poor, man or woman. We all have to work together, as we are all going to feel its effects if we do not take steps to adapt to its impacts and to go even further to mitigate and prevent climate change from occurring.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us for Prime Time News at 7. On behalf of the News, Sports and Production teams, good afternoon.